The classroom's fluorescent lights hummed, casting a sterile glow over the desks. Lena, her dark hair in a thick braid, tapped her pen against her notebook. Her earth-colored eyes scanned Mr. Harrison's neat handwriting on the whiteboard. A Cherokee girl, vibrant and deeply rooted in her heritage, she felt a discordant rhythm building in her chest. Mr. Harrison, cheerful but detached, beamed at the class. "All right, class, settle down. November is Native American Heritage Month," he paused. Lena shifted, unease prickling. "And to celebrate," he continued, gesturing grandly, "we're going to dive into the fascinating world of our nation's First Peoples." Lena's grip tightened. First Peoples asterisk. The phrase felt hollow, devoid of centuries of vibrant culture, resilience, and struggle. Mr. Harrison clicked to the next slide. A generic teepee, feathered headdress, and a man on horseback. "Now, when you think of Native Americans, what comes to mind?" he boomed. "Think about their traditions, their connection to nature, their spiritual ways." Frustration washed over Lena. The same tired stereotypes, recycled year after year. Her Cherokee ancestors hadn't lived in teepees. They had intricate towns, complex societies, and a rich oral tradition. A familiar burn behind her eyes, a mix of anger and weariness began. "Mr. Harrison instructed, take out a fresh sheet of paper and draw what you envision when you hear Native American. Don't overthink it." The room filled with rustling paper and scratching pencils. Lena watched, jaw tightening as classmates sketched. Kevin drew a cartoonish figure with an exaggerated feathered headdress. Sarah meticulously colored a buckskin tunic. Another student drew a crude bow and arrow, yet another a totem pole. A parade of caricatures, each a testament to the narrow, often offensive, understanding of Native American cultures perpetuated by media, and it seemed, by well-meaning but ill-informed educators. Lena's face hardened. Her eyes narrowed, taking in the casual ignorance, the innocent perpetuation of harmful stereotypes. This wasn't just a project, it was an erasure, a distortion of who her people truly were. The images on the desks were like tiny, stinging blows, chipping away at her heritage, reducing it to simplistic, demeaning symbols. The drumbeat in her chest, once off-kilter, now throbbed with fierce, growing anger. She picked up her pencil, but her hand hovered, unsure how to capture her people's true essence in a room that so clearly misunderstood. The insensitivity, the casual dismissal of an entire, diverse population, fueled a quiet, simmering rage. This was not just about her. It was about every ancestor, every story, every truth being twisted and forgotten. The final bell shrieked, a jarring sound. Lena watched her classmates spill into the hallway, leaving her alone with the scent of stale chalk and Mr. Harrison's oblivious smile. He tidied his desk, humming, unaware of the storm brewing within her. Lena took a deep breath, the words forming carefully. She approached his desk, her voice steady despite trembling hands. "Mr. Harrison," she began, "can I talk to you for a moment about the project?" He looked up, his smile unwavering. "Ah, Lena, what a bright young artist. Already thinking about your masterpiece." Lena's jaw tightened. She pushed past the compliment. "It's about the drawings, sir. And the way we're talking about Native Americans." She paused, choosing her words. "I appreciate you wanting us to learn about our Heritage Month, but some of the information and the way it's being presented, it's not quite accurate. The tippies and feathered headdresses, they're specific to certain tribes, not all Native peoples. And calling us First Peoples when we have distinct tribal names. It feels like it erases our individual identities." Mr. Harrison chuckled, a dismissive sound. He leaned back, folding his arms. "Now, Lena, I understand you're passionate, but we're just trying to make this fun and educational. It's a broad overview. We can't get into the specifics of every single tribe, can we? That would take years. This is just a way to introduce the topic, to get the kids engaged. It's all in good fun. Lena's frustration bubbled. But it's not fun when it perpetuates stereotypes, Mr. Harrison, when it makes us seem like a costume or a caricature. My people, the Cherokee, we have a rich history, a complex culture. We don't live in tippies, and we certainly don't all wear feathers in our hair. When you present it this way, it simplifies us. It makes us seem less than real. Her voice rose, her calm cracking. He waved a dismissive hand. Oh, come now, Lena. You're being overly sensitive. It's just a drawing project. We're celebrating, not scrutinizing. The children are enjoying it. It's educational fun, as I said. He stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Perhaps you could use this as an opportunity to educate your classmates with your own drawing. Show them what you mean. That's the spirit of it. Lena felt a hot flush spread across her cheeks. The audacity, the sheer ignorance of his words was staggering. Educate them. She had just tried and he had brushed her off. Her voice, a raw, trembling whisper, quickly gained strength. Overly sensitive, educational fun, the words felt like ash. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. Is being Cherokee a joke to you? The question hung, heavy with pain and indignation. Her chest heaved, anger and hurt a physical ache. She wanted to scream, to make him understand, but the words caught. He stared back, his smile finally faltering, replaced by mild surprise. Lena knew, with crushing certainty, she had been unheard. The system, embodied by this well-meaning but ignorant man, had won. Defeated, she turned and walked out, the silence of the empty classroom echoing her profound powerlessness. The front door clicked shut, the silence of her home a stark contrast to the buzzing frustration she carried. She found Alara, her grandmother, busy with beadwork by the window, and Sarah, her mother, at the kitchen island, scrolling on her phone. The familiar scent of sage and fresh coffee filled the air. Lena, honey, you're home early, Sarah said, looking up, her brow furrowed as she noticed Lena's downcast expression. Lena walked over, dropping her backpack. Something happened at school. Alara's nimble fingers paused, her wise eyes, dark and deep like ancient rivers, turned towards Lena. She simply waited, a silent invitation. Lena recounted the day's events, the superficial lesson, the caricatures, and Mr. Harrison's dismissive response. Her voice trembled with anger and hurt. He didn't get it, Mama. He called me overly sensitive, like being Cherokee is some kind of joke to him. Sarah's eyes flashed. Overly sensitive? That's outrageous. You should go straight to Principal Davies, Lena. This isn't right. Alara reached out, her hand gently covering Lena's. Her touch was warm, grounding. And what does your heart tell you, my granddaughter? Lena looked from her mother's fierce expression to her grandmother's calm, knowing gaze. I'm scared, Grandma. Scared of being seen as a troublemaker. Of them thinking I'm just difficult. But it also feels like I have to say something. For us. For our people. Because if I don't, who will? Alara nodded slowly, her eyes filled with a quiet sorrow that seemed to stretch back through generations. There is a strength in knowing who you are, child. A strength they cannot diminish, no matter how hard they try to simplify us, to turn us into a story they can easily understand. Our history is not a caricature, Lena. It is a living, breathing thing, carried in our blood, in our stories, in our very spirit. She paused, her gaze distant. My grandmother, she told me stories of the old ways, of how our people endured, how they held on to their truth even when the world tried to strip it away. She said, the truth, like the river, will always find its way. You carry that truth, Lena. You carry the voices of all who came before you. Sarah, though still simmering, listened intently, her hand on Lena's shoulder. Your grandmother is right, Lena. We'll support you, whatever you decide. But you don't have to carry this alone. Lena felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging and purpose. The fear was still there, but now accompanied by burgeoning resolve. Ilara's words were a balm, a reminder of the deep roots that anchored her. I want them to see us, Grandma. Really see us. Not just the costumes and the spiritual ways they imagine. Lena's voice was stronger now, infused with new determination. I want them to know we're still here. We're not just history. Ilara smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. And so you will, my heart. So you will. Sometimes one voice, speaking its truth clearly, can echo louder than 1,000 lies. You have that voice, Lena. Use it. We are here standing with you always. The quiet strength in Ilara's words, the unwavering support from Sarah, solidified something within Lena. This wasn't just about a bad lesson anymore. It was about reclaiming a narrative, honoring her heritage, and ensuring that the echoes of her ancestors were heard, not dismissed. The fight, she realized, was just beginning, and she was ready. The polished door to Principal Davies' office felt heavy under Lena's hand, a stark contrast to the weight in her chest. Her mother, Sarah, squeezed her shoulder reassuringly as they stepped inside. The office was sterile, impersonal, filled with framed certificates and a large, empty desk. Principal Davies, with a perpetually strained smile and a tightly pulled-back bun, rose from behind it. Sarah, Lena, please have a seat. Principal Davies' voice was smooth, almost practiced. I understand you've had quite the concern regarding Mr. Harrison's recent lesson. Concern doesn't quite cover it, Principal, Sarah said. My daughter was deeply hurt and disrespected. The way Native American culture was portrayed was not only inaccurate but offensive. Principal Davies nodded, her smile faltering. Yes, I've had a word with Mr. Harrison. He assures me his intentions were entirely benevolent. He truly believed he was fostering an appreciation for diversity. She paused, tapping a pen on a pristine notepad. Sometimes in our zeal to educate, we might miss the mark slightly. Lena shifted, the polite words grating. It wasn't a slight miss. It was a complete misrepresentation, a perpetuation of harmful stereotypes. Principal Davies continued, rest assured, we take all feedback very seriously here at Northwood High. We pride ourselves on being an inclusive environment. She gestured vaguely. I've asked Mr. Harrison to review his lesson plans more thoroughly in the future and perhaps incorporate more contemporary Native American voices. That's a start, I suppose, Sarah said. But what about the impact this has had on Lena, on all the students who were given such a distorted view? Principal Davies sighed, almost imperceptibly. Lena, my dear, I truly apologize if you felt marginalized. That was never our intention. Perhaps this could be an opportunity for you to educate your peers, to share your unique perspective. She leaned forward, eyes bright with feigned enthusiasm. You could be a wonderful resource for the school. A student ambassador for cultural understanding. Lena stared, a bitter taste in her mouth. They wanted her to fix their mess, to carry the burden of correcting decades of systemic ignorance, all while offering platitudes. The thought of standing in front of her classmates, trying to undo the damage of a lifetime of misconceptions, felt overwhelming. It wasn't her job to teach them what the school should have been teaching. It's not just about me feeling marginalized, Principal Davies, Lena said, her voice quiet but firm. It's about the truth. Our history isn't a caricature. Our people aren't just teepees and feathers. We're doctors, lawyers, artists, scientists. We're here now, and our cultures are vibrant and diverse. What Mr. Harrison taught was a lie. Principal Davies' smile tightened. Lena, I appreciate your passion. Truly. And I assure you, we will look into it thoroughly. We'll explore sensitivity training for our staff, perhaps a school-wide assembly on cultural awareness next year. These things take time, you understand. The words echoed emptily. Look into it. Next year, take time. It was a dismissal disguised as an apology, a promise of future action that felt like evasion. Lena felt profound disillusionment. The official channels, the system itself, was a brick wall. They weren't interested in genuine change, only in maintaining civility and avoiding controversy. Sarah, sensing Lena's frustration, stood. Thank you for your time, Principal Davies. We hope to see some tangible changes. Principal Davies rose, her smile back. Of course, Sarah. We're all on the same team here, working towards a better, more inclusive future for our students. As they walked out, the heavy door clicking shut, Lena felt a cold knot in her stomach. The meeting had done nothing to alleviate her anger. It had solidified her conviction. This wasn't a problem for polite conversations and empty promises. If the adults wouldn't address the truth, she would find another way. The path forward was clear. She couldn't rely on the system. She would speak for herself and for her ancestors. The quiet determination Alara had spoken of began to solidify. The soft glow of Lena's desk lamp illuminated a battlefield of books. Cherokee Nation, a history, voices from the Trail of Tears, indigenous wisdom. They lay open, pages dog-eared and highlighted, spilling over her small wooden desk onto the floor and even onto her bed. Her laptop hummed with the quiet intensity of deep research. Images flickered, sepia-toned photographs of stoic faces, maps tracing forced migrations, intricate patterns of Cherokee artistry. Each click, each turn of a page was a deliberate act. Lena felt the weight of generations pressing down, a strange mix of sorrow and fierce pride. Mr. Harrison's dismissive words, Principal Davies' platitudes, still stung, but now overshadowed by a burgeoning purpose. Alara's words echoed, "Your truth can overcome misrepresentation." Lena was determined to find that truth, to arm herself with it, to wield it like a shield and a sword. She leaned closer to the screen, tracing the faded lines of an old photograph. Her great-great-grandmother, a survivor of the Trail of Tears. Her eyes, ancient and filled with unspeakable pain, held unyielding strength, a resilience that transcended time. Lena felt a kinship with this distant ancestor, a profound connection that sparked a fire within her. This was not just history. This was her story etched into her being. This was the legacy she carried, the voice she was bound to amplify. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. The vague promises of sensitivity training and school-wide assemblies from Principal Davies now seemed hollow, almost insulting. They wouldn't speak for her people. They wouldn't tell the real story. She would. Lena pulled a fresh document onto her screen, the cursor blinking. Her fingers hovered, then began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed and conviction. Words flowed, raw and impassioned, fueled by injustices past and present. She wrote about the beauty of her heritage, the richness of her culture, the resilience of her ancestors. She wrote about the pain of erasure, the sting of stereotypes, the burden of being misunderstood. She wrote with the voice of her great-great-grandmother, with the wisdom of Alara, with the fire of her own awakening. This wasn't just a speech, it was a declaration. A promise to herself, to her family, to her ancestors, and to every Native American child who had ever felt invisible or misrepresented. The words took shape, forming a powerful narrative, a call to action. Lena's determination was palpable, radiating from her, filling the small room. She was no longer just a student. She was a voice ready to be heard. The fight had just begun, and Lena, armed with knowledge and ancestral strength, was ready to lead the charge. Lena sat on the edge of her bed, the soft glow of a ring light illuminating her face. Her eyes, usually bright, held a deep simmering fire. The camera, perched precariously on a stack of books, stared back, awaiting her truth. She took a deep breath, the words forming a tight knot before unraveling into a powerful question. "Is being Cherokee a joke to you?" Lena asked, her voice steady despite trembling hands. Because that's what it felt like today. That's what it felt like when Mr. Harrison stood in front of my history class and reduced centuries of resilience, of culture, of pain into a caricature. She paused, letting the silence hang heavy, allowing the weight of her question to settle. He talked about Native Americans as if we were a relic, a footnote in a dusty textbook. He showed images that were offensive, perpetuating stereotypes that have haunted my people for generations. And when I tried to speak up, when I tried to correct the blatant inaccuracies, I was shut down. Lena's gaze intensified, her voice gaining momentum. I went to Principal Davies, hoping for understanding, for accountability. But all I got were empty platitudes. A slight miss, she called it. A slight miss, when my heritage, my identity, was disrespected and misrepresented. She suggested I become a student ambassador for cultural understanding, as if it's my job to fix their ignorance, to educate them on the very history they refuse to acknowledge. A flicker of raw pain crossed her face, quickly replaced by resolve. My great-great-grandmother survived the trail of tears. She walked hundreds of miles, burying her loved ones, carrying the weight of her ancestors and the hope for future generations. Her story, our story, is not a slight miss. It's a living truth, etched into our blood, into our very being. Lena leaned forward, her voice dropping to a more intimate tone, as if speaking directly to each viewer. We are not just historical figures. We are vibrant, contemporary individuals. We are artists, scientists, doctors, teachers. We are still here. And our history is rich, complex, and deserving of respect, not ridicule. She picked up a small, intricately beaded pouch, holding it up for the camera. This was my grandma Laura's. She taught me that our history isn't just about the pain, but about the resilience, the beauty, the unwavering spirit of our people. She taught me that our voice is our most powerful weapon against erasure. So, I'm asking you, Lena continued, her voice rising with renewed passion, to learn, to question, to challenge what you've been taught, to seek out the truth beyond the textbooks, to understand that cultural erasure isn't just about forgetting the past, it's about denying the present and undermining the future. She finished with a plea, her eyes earnest and unwavering. Let's talk about this. Let's learn together. Let's make sure that no one else has to sit in a classroom and feel invisible, or worse, feel like their heritage is a joke. As the camera stopped recording, Chloe, her friend, emerged from behind the desk, her expression a mix of awe and fierce pride. Lena, that was incredible, Chloe said, her voice hushed. Seriously, that was powerful. Chloe, fingers flying, already had the video file open. Okay, let's get this uploaded. What do you want for the title? Lena thought for a moment, adrenaline still coursing. How about Is Being Cherokee a Joke to You? My truth about cultural erasure in schools. Chloe nodded, typing quickly. Perfect. And for the description, we can add some of the historical facts you mentioned, links to Native American advocacy groups, maybe some resources for people who want to learn more. As the video began to upload, Chloe's phone buzzed. Whoa, she murmured, eyes widening. People are already sharing the pre-upload link you sent out. The comments are starting to roll in. This is going to blow up, Lena. I can feel it. Lena watched the progress bar inch forward, a mix of apprehension and exhilaration. She had spoken her truth, raw and unvarnished. Now the world would hear it, and she was ready for whatever came next. The first few shares, then dozens, then hundreds. As the video began its journey, a small spark igniting a much larger conversation. The school buzzed with an unfamiliar energy, a tempest brewing in the usually predictable hallways. Lena's video had detonated, sending shockwaves through every classroom. Whispers followed her, some laced with admiration, others with thinly veiled contempt. Students huddled, phones clutched, replaying the clip, their faces a mix of awe and indignation. "Did you see Lena's video? She totally called out Mr. Harrison," a freshman murmured. Another scoffed, "Yeah, but what about the school? This makes us all look bad." The division was palpable. Some teachers avoided eye contact, their cheerful greetings replaced by tight-lipped nods. Others, like Ms. Evans from English, offered a small, encouraging smile. But the dominant sentiment felt like a cold front. Principal Davies' office, usually a beacon of quiet authority, now felt like a war room. The air was thick with unspoken accusations. Lena sat between her parents, their hands clasped, a silent fortress. Principal Davies, face a mask of stern disapproval, leaned forward, voice a low, controlled rumble. "Lena, your video has caused a significant disruption to the learning environment. And frankly, it has severely damaged the school's reputation." Lena's jaw tightened, but she met Principal Davies' gaze unflinchingly. "I spoke my truth." "Is speaking the truth disruptive?" Principal Davies' eyes narrowed. "There are appropriate channels for expressing concerns, Lena. This public spectacle, it's unacceptable. We've received calls from parents, from the school board. This is not how we handle disagreements here. You have created an atmosphere of unrest." She paused, letting her words hang, a silent threat. "I am considering disciplinary action. This could include suspension, Lena. And it could impact your academic record, your college applications." Lena felt a surge of defiance, a quiet strength blooming. They could threaten her, try to silence her, but they couldn't erase what she had said. The public response, the messages of support, only solidified her conviction. This wasn't just about her, it was about something far bigger. "I understand the gravity of your words, Principal Davies," Lena said, her voice steady, unwavering. "But what about the gravity of what was taught in that classroom? What about the damage done to my culture, to my heritage, by misrepresentation and erasure? Is that not a disruption to learning? Is that not damaging to the school's reputation?" Principal Davies' face flushed. "We are not here to debate the curriculum, Lena. We are here to address your behavior. This is a serious matter. I expect you to remove the video immediately. Issue a public apology to Mr. Harrison and to the school. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to proceed with formal disciplinary measures." Lena looked at her parents, who nodded almost imperceptibly, a silent pact of solidarity. She turned back to Principal Davies, her gaze firm, resolute. "I cannot do that. I will not apologize for speaking my truth. I will not apologize for standing up for my heritage. And I will not remove the video. What I said was true. And the truth sometimes is disruptive. The stakes had never been higher, the pressure never more intense." But Lena, fueled by the conviction of her message and the quiet strength of her ancestors, refused to back down. This was just the beginning. The digital world, once a platform for Lena's solitary cry, now hummed with unexpected solidarity. Her inbox, once quiet, began to fill with messages, each a thread weaving a new safety net. There was Chloe, the quiet history buff, who sent a meticulously researched document detailing similar historical inaccuracies in textbooks across the state, offering it without fanfare. "You're right, Lena. This needs to change." It wasn't just the content, it was the quiet, steady support. Then came a message from a student in the school's Queer Straight Alliance. Their message spoke of shared struggles against misunderstanding and marginalization, of the exhaustion that came with constantly having to educate others, and offered their group's full, unwavering support. "We stand with you," it read, "because an injustice to one is an injustice to all." Lena felt warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just about Cherokee history anymore. It was about a broader fight for dignity and truth. Even some teachers, cautious in the public eye, found ways to reach out. A subtle nod from her English teacher, a brief, encouraging email from the art teacher, and even a whispered "keep fighting" from the reserved librarian. These small gestures, though private, felt monumental. They affirmed that her message was resonating beyond the student body, chipping away at the institutional silence. The most significant outreach came in an email from the Cherokee Nation Advocacy Group. Their message was direct, professional, and powerful. "Lena," it began, "we have seen your video. Your courage is an inspiration. We want to offer you our full legal and media support." Lena's heart hammered. This wasn't just a few supportive messages. This was an organization, rooted in her heritage, offering tangible strategic help. They explained they had been tracking similar incidents and saw Lena's stand as crucial. They offered to connect her with legal counsel, help navigate media interviews, and amplify her message nationally. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. Sarah and Alara were with Lena when she read that email, their faces mirroring her awe. "This is huge, Lena," Sarah said. "This changes everything." Alara nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. "You're not just speaking for yourself anymore, Lena. You're speaking for so many." Lena realized they were right. This wasn't just about Mr. Harrison or Principal Davies anymore. It was about challenging a system that had, for too long, sidelined and misrepresented Native American voices. The advocacy group's involvement expanded her understanding of the fight, transforming it from a personal grievance into a broader movement for historical accuracy and cultural respect. She felt a surge of confidence, a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't alone. She had an army, diverse and determined, standing with her. But with this newfound visibility came the inevitable darkness. Her social media feeds, once filled with support, began to flood with vitriol. Anonymous accounts spewed hateful comments, questioning her intelligence, her motives, even her heritage. They called her a troublemaker, an attention seeker, and accused her of playing the victim card. Some messages were outright threats. Lena felt a knot of dread tighten. This was the ugly side of public attention, the venomous backlash. One particularly nasty comment, filled with racial slurs, made her hands tremble. She wanted to lash out, to defend herself, to scream back into the void. But then she remembered the advice from the advocacy group. "Don't engage with the trolls. Let us handle it." Sarah, ever protective, saw the distress. "Don't look at that stuff, Lena," she urged, pulling the phone from her hand. Alara, ever practical, said, "We can block them. Report them. The advocacy group can help with this too. They know how to deal with online harassment." Lena took a deep, shaky breath. It was hard to ignore, to not let the hate fester. But looking at the supportive messages, at the email from the advocacy group, she found her resolve. Her allies weren't just there for the good times. They were there to shield her from the worst, to remind her of the truth she was fighting for. The online hate was a stark reminder of the ignorance she was up against, but it also solidified her conviction. This fight was necessary. And with her growing network of allies, she knew she was ready for it. The tears of her ancestors, those who walked the trail of tears, would not be in vain. She would not let their voices be silenced again. The ripple effect of Lena's video rapidly transformed into a tidal wave. What began as a local controversy quickly transcended school boundaries, catching fire on social media platforms before leaping onto traditional news channels. First, local affiliates clamored for interviews, their evening segments featuring snippets of Lena's powerful monologue. Then, almost overnight, national outlets picked up the story. Morning talk shows dissected her words, cable news pundits debated the implications, and her face, defiant and resolute, flashed across screens from coast to coast. Lena found herself thrust into a dizzying whirlwind of media appearances. Invitations poured in. The Cherokee Nation Advocacy Group, true to their word, provided media training, a crash course in sound bites and strategic messaging. But Lena found it suffocating. They taught her to anticipate questions, to pivot, to maintain composure. They urged her to simplify her complex feelings, to distill her nuanced arguments into easily digestible phrases. Lena tried, but each session left her feeling like she was losing a piece of herself. "It feels fake," Lena told Sarah and Alara one evening, slumping onto the couch, shoulders heavy. "They want me to be a spokesperson, not me. They want me to be palatable, to fit into their little boxes." Sarah gently squeezed Lena's hand. "They're trying to protect you, Lena. The media can twist things so easily. This training is about giving you the tools to control your narrative, even when they try to take it from you." Alara, with her quiet wisdom, nodded. "It's a different kind of fight, my dear. Not with fists, but with words. And sometimes, to win that fight, you have to choose your words very carefully. Remember why you started this. Remember your great-great-grandmother, how she survived the trail of tears. She didn't have a microphone, but her story, her truth, still endured." Lena sighed, the weight of their words settling. She knew they were right. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about something far larger. It was about accurate representation, about challenging systemic ignorance, about honoring her ancestors. But the constant scrutiny, the endless questions, the pressure to perform for the cameras was taking a toll. Every new article, every exploding comment section chipped away at her authenticity. Principal Davies remained conspicuously silent in the media, issuing only terse, formal statements through the school district's public relations department. Mr. Harrison had also retreated, his social media accounts scrubbed clean, his public presence vanished. But their silence only amplified Lena's voice, making her the undeniable focal point of the burgeoning national conversation. One morning, Lena watched herself on a national news program, her video playing for millions. The commentator praised her courage, her articulate delivery, her powerful message. But as Lena watched her own image, she felt a strange detachment, as if observing someone else entirely. Was that really her, the girl who had simply wanted to share her truth? Or was it the polished, media-trained version, carefully constructed for public consumption? "It's overwhelming, isn't it?" Alara said, sitting beside her. "To have your private pain become public spectacle." Lena nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "I just want to be heard, not turned into a sound bite. I want them to understand the history, the pain, the importance of it all, not just for me, but for everyone like me." Sarah, ever the strategist, put an arm around Lena. "And they will, Lena. We'll make sure they do. This is just the beginning. We'll navigate this together. We'll keep reminding them of your core purpose, of why you started this. You are not just a story, you are the storyteller. And your voice, your authentic voice, is still the most powerful weapon you have." Lena leaned into their embrace, finding solace in their unwavering support. The media frenzy was relentless, a constant barrage of interviews, requests, and public scrutiny. It was exhausting, alienating, and deeply personal. But with Sarah and Alara by her side, reminding her of her roots and her purpose, Lena knew she could endure. She had to. The ancestors demanded it. The future depended on it. The fluorescent lights of the school board meeting room hummed, casting a sterile glow over the packed audience. Every seat was taken, and people lined the walls, their faces a mix of anticipation and tension. Principal Davies sat at the head of the long table, their usual composed demeanor slightly frayed. Next to them, Harrison fidgeted with a pen, avoiding eye contact. Lena, flanked by her parents and representatives from the Cherokee Nation Advocacy Group, felt a tremor of nerves, quickly overshadowed by resolve. This was it, the culmination of weeks of struggle, the moment to demand accountability. Principal Davies cleared their throat, amplified by the microphone. Welcome everyone to this special session of the school board. We are here today to address concerns regarding our history curriculum and the conduct of certain faculty members. Principal Davies' gaze briefly flickered to Lena before settling back on their notes. We understand the passion surrounding these issues and assure the community that we take all feedback seriously. A murmuring rippled. A woman in the front row, a parent Lena recognized, loudly said, "Seriously enough to do something about it, Principal Davies." Principal Davies ignored the interjection, continuing in a measured tone. We will begin with presentations from the concerned parties, followed by a period for public comments. We ask that everyone remain respectful and adhere to the time limits. The advocacy group's lead attorney, a calm, commanding woman named Alara, spoke first. She outlined the historical inaccuracies in Harrison's lesson, providing documented evidence and contrasting it with the true narrative of the Trail of Tears. Alara's voice was steady, factual, but imbued with indignation. This isn't merely a matter of oversight. It's a perpetuation of harmful stereotypes and a deliberate erasure of indigenous history. Our children deserve the truth, not sanitized fictions. Next, Lena's mother spoke, her voice thick with emotion as she recounted Lena's distress and the impact on their family. Lena's father followed, emphasizing the importance of cultural identity and the school's responsibility to foster an inclusive environment. Then it was Lena's turn. She walked to the podium, heart pounding. She looked out at the faces, some familiar, some strangers. She took a deep breath. "My name is Lena. I'm a student at this school and I am Cherokee." Her voice, though shaky at first, grew stronger. "When Mr. Harrison taught us about the Trail of Tears, he called it a voluntary relocation. He said Native Americans were grateful for the land they were given. He called it a peaceful transfer." Lena paused. "But that's not the truth. My ancestors were forcibly removed from their homes. They marched hundreds of miles, freezing, starving. Thousands died. It was a forced march, a genocide, not a voluntary relocation." She looked directly at Harrison, who finally met her gaze, then quickly looked away. Lena continued, her voice rising with conviction. "To teach this lie is to deny our history, to deny our pain, to deny our very existence. It tells us that our stories don't matter, that our suffering is insignificant. And it tells other students that it's okay to ignore the truth, to perpetuate ignorance." Lena's gaze swept across the board members. This isn't just about one lesson or one teacher. This is about a systemic problem, a curriculum that has historically marginalized and erased indigenous voices. We need more than just an apology. We need change. We need a curriculum that reflects the true history of this land and its people. We need cultural sensitivity training for all staff. We need to ensure that no other student has to feel the shame and anger I felt when my history was distorted and dismissed. A hush fell as Lena's emotional plea resonated. She spoke of her grandmother's stories, of the resilience of her people, and her hope for a future where her heritage was celebrated, not erased. My ancestors endured the trail of tears so that I could stand here today. I carry their strength, their pain, and their hope. And I will not let their story be forgotten or twisted. We deserve the truth and we demand it. Applause erupted, loud and sustained. Principal Davies rapped their gavel, trying to restore order. When the applause subsided, Principal Davies spoke, their voice strained. "Thank you, Lena, for your passionate words." Then it was Harrison's turn. He approached the podium, looking uncomfortable. I understand the concerns raised. My intention was never to cause offense. I was simply following the curriculum as provided. He stumbled. I regret if my teaching caused any distress. It was an oversight, an unintentional error. He tried to downplay the severity, portraying himself as a victim of circumstance, not a perpetrator. He offered a half-hearted apology, but it rang hollow after Lena's powerful testimony. Principal Davies then presented their defense, emphasizing the school's commitment to diversity and inclusion, outlining new initiatives for curriculum review, and promising comprehensive sensitivity training for all staff. They acknowledged the validity of Lena's concerns and assured the board that steps were already being taken. The echoing silence of the now empty school auditorium pressed in on Lena, a stark contrast to the cacophony of applause and shouted questions. Her legs felt like lead, and a dull ache throbbed behind her eyes. She leaned against a cool, plaster wall, sliding slowly to the floor. The victory, if it could even be called that, felt strangely hollow. She had spoken her truth, exposed the lie, and forced a public acknowledgement, however grudging. Yet the sheer weight of it all settled upon her shoulders, a crushing burden of responsibility. She was no longer just Lena, the student who cared about history. She was Lena, the voice of her ancestors, the warrior against ignorance, the symbol of a fight much larger than herself. A wave of doubt, cold and insidious, washed over her. Was it enough? Had her words truly made a difference, or had they merely scratched the surface of a deep-seated ignorance? The faces of the school board members, impassive and unyielding, flashed in her mind. Harrison's forced apology, devoid of genuine remorse, replayed itself, a bitter taste. She felt profound weariness, a bone-deep exhaustion. What if she failed? What if all this effort, all this emotional turmoil, ultimately changed nothing? The thought was a chilling whisper, threatening to extinguish the fragile flame of hope. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the swirling anxieties, the pressure of a community's expectations resting heavily on her young shoulders. The burden of representation felt immense, almost unbearable. A soft presence beside her made her open her eyes. Ilara sat down gently, not saying a word, just offering a comforting silence more powerful than any platitude. They simply sat there, side by side, for several long moments, the quiet understanding a balm to Lena's frayed nerves. Finally, Ilara spoke, her voice a low, steady hum. "That was a lot, Lena. You carried it all with such grace." Lena just shook her head, a tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. "I don't know, Ilara. I feel empty. Like I poured everything out, and it's still not enough. Will they even listen? Will anything truly change?" Her voice was small, vulnerable, a stark contrast to the powerful orator who had just captivated an auditorium. Ilara reached out, her hand gently resting on Lena's arm. "Change is a river, Lena. It carves its path slowly, sometimes imperceptibly, but it always carves. What you did today, it wasn't just a drop in the bucket. It was a boulder placed squarely in the flow, redirecting it, forcing it to acknowledge a new course." She paused, a distant look in her eyes. "I remember when my own community, years ago, fought to reclaim sacred land that had been taken for development. The legal battle stretched on for decades. We faced ridicule, apathy, outright hostility. There were days, so many days, when we wanted to give up, when it felt like screaming into the wind. Alara's gaze met Lena's, filled with deep empathy. My grandmother, she used to tell me, the roots of a tree may be hidden, but they are what hold it firm against the storm. And the strongest trees grow from the smallest seeds, with patience and perseverance. Every step, Lena, no matter how small, matters. Every voice raised, every truth spoken, chips away at the wall of ignorance. It's an arduous process, yes. It's exhausting. But it's a process built on the strength of those who refuse to let their stories be forgotten. Lena listened, Alara's words a soothing melody that slowly, steadily, began to mend the cracks in her resolve. The image of the strong tree, its roots unseen but vital, resonated deeply. She thought of her own grandma, her gentle hands teaching Lena the old stories, her eyes shining with the wisdom of generations. Grandma had always said, "Our history is not just in books, child. It lives in our breath, in our songs, in the beat of our hearts. And it's your duty to keep that heart beating." A flicker of warmth spread through Lena's chest, chasing away the chill of doubt. Alara was right. Grandma was right. This wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon. And today she had run a crucial leg, a powerful leg. She had planted a seed, and now, with the help of her allies, with the strength of her ancestors flowing through her veins, she would nurture it. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the path ahead, while still challenging, no longer seemed insurmountable. She felt a renewed strength, a quiet determination settling deep within her. She took a deep breath, pushing herself up from the floor, the weariness still present but now mingled with a fresh resolve. The battle for truth had just begun, and Lena was ready for the next phase. Weeks melted into a month, then another. The initial fiery intensity of the school board meeting had settled into a simmering anticipation. Lena still felt the weight of it, the lingering doubt, but Alara's words and her grandmother's quiet strength had woven a new kind of resolve into her spirit. Then the email arrived. From Principal Davies' office, an official announcement that rippled through the school community. The school board, in an unprecedented move, had announced the formation of a new curriculum review committee. Its mandate was clear: to thoroughly reevaluate the historical narratives taught within the district, with a particular focus on Indigenous history. And there it was, Lena's name listed among the committee members, alongside representatives from the Native American advocacy group Alara worked with. Not only that, but the announcement also mandated cultural sensitivity training for all school staff, a direct response to Lena's impassioned plea. It was a small victory, Lena knew, a mere crack in the monolithic wall of institutional inertia, but it was significant. It was tangible. Her words, her pain, her fight had not been in vain. The first committee meeting was held in the school library, a room Lena usually associated with quiet study. Today, it buzzed with a different kind of energy. Principal Davies sat at the head of the long table, looking uncharacteristically subdued. Alara was there, her presence a comforting anchor. And then there was Lena, a high school student sitting at a table with adults, her voice now carrying a weight it hadn't before. Lena felt a cautious optimism bloom. It wasn't the euphoria she might have expected, but something deeper, more sustainable. She understood, perhaps more acutely than anyone else, that this was just the beginning. The seeds had been planted, yes, but the ground was still hard, and the journey to true understanding and equitable representation would be long and arduous. Principal Davies cleared their throat, breaking the quiet murmur of introductions. "Thank you all for being here," they said, their voice a little strained. "This committee represents a new chapter for our district." A necessary chapter. Alara leaned over to Lena, a small, knowing smile. "They're learning," Alara whispered, eyes twinkling. Lena nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. The fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. But the door, once firmly shut, had finally opened. And Lena, with the wisdom of her ancestors and the unwavering support of her community, was ready to walk through it. She knew the path ahead would be challenging, filled with resistance and setbacks, but for the first time, she felt a genuine sense of hope. This wasn't just about changing textbooks. It was about changing hearts and minds, about building bridges of understanding where only chasms had existed before. And she was going to be a part of it every step of the way. The fluorescent lights of the school auditorium hummed, casting a sterile glow over the assembled teachers and staff. Lena stood at the podium, a projector screen behind them displaying a map of Cherokee ancestral lands. Beside them, Ilara offered a reassuring smile. This was it, the first cultural sensitivity workshop, a direct result of Lena's impassioned plea. Lena cleared their throat, their voice steady despite the nervous flutter. Today, we're going to talk about history, not just the history you find in textbooks, but the history that lives in us, in our stories, and in our land. They gestured to the map. This is the ancestral territory of the Cherokee people. For generations, this land sustained us, taught us, and shaped our identity. A few teachers shifted uncomfortably. Principal Davies sat in the front row, their expression unreadable, though Lena noticed their gaze occasionally flick to a notepad. Mr. Harrison was there too, slouching slightly, avoiding eye contact. Lena continued, their voice gaining confidence. My family, like many others, was forcibly removed from these lands during what is known as the Trail of Tears. It wasn't just a relocation, it was a devastating act of cultural genocide. Thousands died. My own great-great-grandmother walked that trail. She carried the stories, the songs, the pain, and the resilience with her. They paused, letting the weight of their words settle. When we talk about Native American history, it's not a distant past. It's living history. It's in our blood, in our language, in our traditions that we fight to keep alive. Lena then transitioned into a segment about common misconceptions and stereotypes. They showed images of traditional Cherokee clothing versus Hollywood caricatures, explained the diversity of Native American nations, and debunked the idea that all indigenous cultures were monolithic. Many of you might remember a lesson about the first Thanksgiving, Lena said, their gaze sweeping over the room. But how many of you know about the National Day of Mourning, observed by many indigenous people on the same day? It's a day to remember the genocide of millions of Native people, the theft of Native lands, and the relentless assault on Native culture. A palpable tension filled the room. Some teachers looked genuinely surprised, others seemed defensive. It's not about blame, Lena stated, sensing the shift. It's about understanding the full picture. It's about recognizing that the history taught in our schools has often been incomplete, or worse, inaccurate. They then opened the floor for questions. A young teacher, Sarah, raised her hand tentatively. I always taught the Pilgrim story. I never knew. What should I do differently? Lena smiled gently. Start by seeking out indigenous voices. Invite Native American elders or community members to speak. Use resources from Native organizations. And most importantly, acknowledge the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Then a voice from the back. So you're saying everything we learned was a lie? It was Mr. Harrison, his tone still a bit challenging. Lena met his gaze directly. I'm saying it was one perspective, often told by the colonizers. We're asking you to consider other perspectives, the perspectives of the people who were here first, the people whose stories have been suppressed for too long. Mr. Harrison grumbled something inaudible, but he didn't look away this time. Lena noticed a flicker of something in his eyes, perhaps a hint of curiosity, or maybe just resignation. Later, during a small group activity where teachers discussed how to integrate indigenous perspectives into their subjects, Lena overheard snippets of conversation. "I teach English. I could introduce Native American authors," one teacher mused. "In science, we could talk about traditional ecological knowledge," another suggested. Principal Davies approached Lena during a break. "Lena," they said, their voice softer than usual, "this is impactful. I've received some positive feedback already. The community appreciates our efforts to address these issues." Their pragmatic side was still evident, but Lena sensed a genuine shift beneath the surface. Principal Davies was seeing the value, not just the necessity, of these changes. Lena also saw Mr. Harrison speaking to a colleague, gesturing animatedly. They couldn't hear the exact words, but he seemed to be genuinely engaged in the discussion, even if his posture was still a bit stiff. Lena felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. It was a beginning, a seed planted. The discomfort was there, but so was the genuine engagement, and a few apologies were whispered throughout the room as teachers grappled with their newfound understanding. Lena's leadership and teaching abilities were clearly showcased, and the impact of direct education was undeniable. There was a tangible, positive change in the attitudes of some of the school staff, a promising sign for the future. The ripple effect of Lena's activism began subtly, a quiet hum that soon crescendoed into a powerful chorus. News of her school's curriculum changes and the mandatory cultural sensitivity training spread like wildfire, first within the local district, then to neighboring communities, and finally, across state lines. Students in other schools, emboldened by Lena's courage, started to speak up about similar issues in their own classrooms, demanding more accurate and inclusive representations of Indigenous history. Lena found herself receiving invitations to speak at youth conferences, community events, and even virtual forums. At first, she was hesitant. Lena had never sought the spotlight. Her initial goal was simply to make her school a better place. She was a reluctant leader, but her passion for truth and justice propelled her forward. Each time she stood before an audience, whether a small group of concerned parents or a large auditorium filled with eager young faces, her voice grew stronger, more confident. She spoke of the Trail of Tears not as a distant historical event, but as a living wound that still impacted Indigenous communities today. She shared stories of her own family, of the resilience and wisdom passed down through generations, and the importance of knowing one's true history. Her grandmother, Ilara, often accompanied her to these events, offering quiet support and a grounding presence. Lena remembered one evening after a particularly moving speech, a young Native American girl approached her, tears in her eyes. "You made me feel seen," she whispered, "like my history matters." It was in moments like these that Lena understood the true impact of her work. She wasn't just changing curricula, she was changing hearts and minds, one story at a time. Recognizing the need to reach an even wider audience, Lena collaborated with Chloe, her best friend and a budding social media wizard. Together, they created engaging educational content for platforms like TikTok and Instagram. Chloe designed vibrant graphics and short, impactful videos, while Lena provided the historical accuracy and personal narratives. They debunked common stereotypes, highlighted Indigenous achievements, and shared resources for learning more about diverse Native American cultures. Their Truth Tuesday series, where they addressed historical inaccuracies found in textbooks or popular media, quickly gained traction, garnering thousands of views and sparking important conversations in the comments sections. The collaboration with Chloe proved invaluable. Chloe understood how to translate complex historical concepts into digestible, shareable content, while Lena ensured the integrity and authenticity of the message. Their influence extended far beyond Lena's initial intention, reaching students, educators, and even policymakers who had previously been unaware of these issues. Lena's face, once known only within the halls of her high school, was now recognized by countless young people across the country. She had become a powerful voice for Native American youth, a testament to the idea that one person, armed with truth and conviction, could indeed ignite a movement. The work was ongoing, the challenges still immense, but Lena now knew with unwavering certainty that her voice mattered, and that the seeds of change she had planted were blossoming into a widespread movement for justice and understanding. Months had melted into a new season, and with it, a palpable shift had settled over Lena's history classroom. The stale air of rote memorization and unchallenged narratives had been replaced by a vibrant hum of curiosity and genuine engagement. Mr. Harrison, though still on a journey of learning, was a different teacher. The rigid lines of his previous lectures had softened, replaced by a more nuanced approach. Today, the class was deep into a discussion about the complex history of indigenous resistance movements, a topic that once would have been glossed over or entirely absent. Lena, could you elaborate on the concept of sovereignty as it relates to the Cherokee Nation? Mr. Harrison asked, his voice respectful, almost deferential. He no longer seemed to see Lena as a disruption, but as a valuable resource, a living bridge to the history they were now exploring with newfound depth. Lena, comfortable and confident in this transformed space, leaned forward slightly. Of course, Mr. Harrison, when we talk about Cherokee sovereignty, we're not just talking about self-governance in the modern sense. We're talking about an inherent right, one that existed long before European contact, and one that has been continuously asserted through treaties, legal battles, and cultural preservation, even in the face of immense pressure and forced removal. Her voice was clear, authoritative, yet gentle, laced with the knowledge of generations. A student, a quiet boy named David who rarely spoke before, raised his hand tentatively. So it's not just about land then, it's about identity too. Exactly, David, Lena affirmed, a small smile gracing her lips. It's about the right to self-determination, to maintain cultural practices, languages, and spiritual beliefs without external interference. It's about the very soul of a people, Mr. Harrison nodded, making a note on his whiteboard. That's a crucial distinction, David, and an excellent point, Lena. This brings us to our Native American Heritage Month project. Instead of a single, generalized report, we're going to collaboratively explore diverse tribal cultures. Each group will focus on a specific nation, researching their history, governance, art, and contemporary issues. Lena has graciously offered to help guide us, especially with ensuring accuracy and respectful representation. The class buzzed with a different kind of energy now. There was no groaning or eye-rolling, but instead, an eagerness to delve deeper. Students were already forming groups, their voices filled with genuine questions and ideas. One group discussed the rich oral traditions of the Navajo. Another pondered the intricate weaving of the Pueblo people. This was not just an assignment, it was an exploration, a genuine attempt at understanding. Lena moved among the groups, offering insights, correcting misconceptions gently, and sharing personal anecdotes that brought the history to life. She explained the significance of certain symbols in a traditional Cherokee basket, shared stories of her grandmother's resilience, and illuminated the enduring spirit of indigenous communities today. Her presence was not that of a critic, but of a knowledgeable and empathetic guide. The transformation was evident in every corner of the room. The bulletin board, once adorned with generic, often stereotypical images, now displayed vibrant, authentic artwork and maps detailing ancestral lands. Bookshelves, previously sparse on indigenous voices, were now filled with works by Native American authors, historians, and poets. The school wasn't perfect, of course. There were still biases to dismantle, more lessons to learn, and deeper changes to implement. But in this classroom, in this moment, the seeds of change had not only taken root, but were visibly blossoming. Lena's efforts, her unwavering voice, had created a space where history was no longer a static, one-sided narrative, but a living, breathing tapestry, woven with respect, truth, and the vibrant threads of indigenous experience. The quiet strength Lena carried had manifested into tangible, positive change, right within the walls of her own school. Lena sat across from Alara and Sarah, the scent of cedar and sage mingling with the savory aroma of venison stew. Today, the quiet hum of their home felt like a sanctuary, a stark contrast to the bustling, often contentious world outside. Lena picked at a piece of fry bread, a small smile playing on her lips. "It feels different now," Lena said, looking from Alara's knowing eyes to Sarah's attentive face. "Remember when I first started, how angry I was, how frustrated?" Alara reached across the table, her hand gently covering Lena's. "We remember, child. We saw your fire. It burned bright, even when you thought it was only smoke," Sarah nodded. "You channeled that frustration into something incredible, Lena. You didn't just talk about change, you made it happen. I see it every day in the classroom, in the way the students engage, in how Mr. Harrison has evolved." Sarah's lips twitched at the mention of Harrison, a shared acknowledgement of his surprising transformation. Lena chuckled softly. "He even asked me for recommendations on indigenous authors last week. Can you believe it?" She shook her head, still a little amazed. "But it wasn't just me. It was all of us. Chloe, Harrison, Principal Davies, even the ones who were hesitant at first. And you too," Lena's voice softened, her gaze lingering on Alara, then Sarah. "You were my anchors. Your stories, your strength, your belief in me, that's what kept me going." Alara's eyes, ancient and wise, twinkled with pride. "You carried the stories, Lena. You carried our ancestors' voices into places they were never meant to be heard. You reminded them of the tears, yes, but also of the resilience, the joy, the survival. That is what matters. And the kids," Sarah added, "they see you. They see what's possible. You've shown them that their voices matter, that their history is worth fighting for." Lena took a deep breath, a sense of profound peace settling over her. "It wasn't easy," she admitted. "There were so many times I wanted to give up, when the resistance felt overwhelming. But then I'd think of Grandma, of the trail, of everything our people endured, and I knew I couldn't. Not when there was still so much work to do." She looked out the window, past the familiar trees, towards the horizon. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The journey had been long, but it had led her here, to a place of quiet strength and unwavering purpose. Lena had walked through the fire and emerged not unscathed but stronger, more resolute. The frustration had transformed into determination, the anger into advocacy. She was no longer just a teenager with a grievance. She was a leader, a storyteller, a bridge between worlds. "What comes next?" Sarah asked, almost a whisper. Lena turned back to them, a quiet strength in her eyes. "More. Always more. This is just the beginning." A small, confident smile spread across Lena's face. She knew her voice mattered, and she would continue to use it to honor her heritage, to build a future where every story was heard, every history respected. The fight wasn't over, but Lena was ready. She was ready for whatever came next, embodying the spirit of her people, strong and resolute.